So I got a couple of points boost as well.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, Vincent, he's just super strong, and he's a man in form.
Yeah.
Now, no longer a student, a full-time chess professional.
Yeah. And with the white pieces against Magnus, what's happening on the board?
Okay. The English opening. Maybe none of us here in the studio, but this last move made you chuckle, Lawrence. D3.
I think Grishchuk was the one who popularized it a few years ago. I think Kramnik also had a few outings with this a few years back. It's a very, it's a move which says to black, you've got lots of options here, but I want a non-theoretical battle, and I just want to get a position that's playable against you. So it's quite an interesting approach. And something I don't recall Vincent doing previously, actually.
He has, actually.
Or has he?
Yeah, he has, but just only last month.
Oh, okay.
September the 7th, he beat Niels Grandelius with this variation.
What was that in? Was that in an over-the-board tournament? Or?
It was in the Polish Extraliga. Of course, this is the tournament where Vincent had a tremendous score. And
where he reached 2,700.
Did, yeah.
Yeah, so by hook or by crook, we've got what looks like a normal position. It's just it's kind of an odd kind of version of one. So right now, black's bishop has come out nicely. White has kind of placed his bishop, his own dark square bishop, on an odd square. White has just not neglected. I mean, he's neglected to develop his kingside pieces so far. White needs to get castled at some point. So I'm expecting Vincent to kind of remedy that and just bring out some of those kingside pieces now. But yeah, I mean, this is just a strange strategy to me. It's like Magnus is the one who tries his hardest to take players out of theory. You've kind of done his job for him. You've just given him a very healthy position. It looks like a Sicilian, just with reversed colours. And Magnus, he's the master of those types of positions.
Well, it's quite interesting you say that, David, because up until the pawn move, where that supported the bishop, it was all theory. But I mean, it had been played before, wasn't well known. But once that move had been played, that was it. New territory. Wow. And it's Vincent who is on his own. Okay. But of course, as David referenced, they will be drawing all the patterns that they learnt when they themselves are playing the Sicilian defence with the white pieces.
And yeah, Magnus the master in this, but I can tell you, Vincent Keymer is a master in advantage capitalization. Oh. I really want to bring up the Aimchess head-to-head stats between these two, because Magnus Carlsen, we know his numbers are really high in everything, but advantage capitalization, Vincent Keymer has the highest number of any of the players in the tournament. So in the 100 last rapid games he has played, 91%. What's that mean?
So advantage capitalization here, it means when a player has a +2 advantage, according to the computer, or more, they convert, and he does that 91% of the time. That is phenomenal.
Wow.
Even in complicated positions where the evaluation is swinging, he tends to win. He doesn't really let things slip. The other side of that is resourcefulness when you're losing, but then you fight back, and his stats there are still decent. Also, accuracy. Vincent almost at the same level as Magnus. That's incredible. Endgame, 69% is a great number as well, winning endgames at a decent rate. So, yeah, good player. Very, very good player.
Just if he gets an advantage, we need to. Magnus needs to be careful.
Yeah, and you know, Vincent, I don't know how much you've spoken about him here over the course of the tour.
Haven't you seen every single minute of our show, Lawrence?
I was down the gym.
Good save.
No, but Vincent has been working closely with Peter Lecco, which a lot of people may or may not know. Peter Lecco almost became world champion in 2004.
Yeah.
Great player, somebody I've actually done commentary with on the other channel, Chess 24, when I was doing some commentary. And imitates his style very much. He's a very clinical player, he doesn't risk too much. He's not a gunslinger, he's not a Mamajarov, he's not a Duda, well, perhaps a Rapport, let's say.
Yeah.
He doesn't give you many chances. And when he gets a little nibble, he's actually incredibly mature. His playing style is... He's only 17, but he plays like somebody who's been playing chess for 50 years.
Wow.
It's quite extraordinary.
An old soul.
He's got an old soul, exactly.
It sounds like you almost described Anish Giri a little bit, but maybe what Anish is struggling with is taking the advantage when he has it.
I think with Anish also, he does struggle with not understanding, that's a bit patronising, but he doesn't like risking at all, and there are some situations where you have to do it, and you have to be a bit more bold and a bit more ambitious. I think that's what's held Anish back, actually, from getting to the very, very top.
Yeah.
So...
Too much of a perfectionist, maybe.
Just hates losing.
Yeah.
But sometimes, as we say, you've got to risk it for the biscuit.
Yeah. You need to love winning more than you hate losing.
Yeah, and Magnus takes huge risks, actually. If you look at his games, wacky openings, random positions, he takes massive risks, and he gets rewarded, so...
You can't keep control throughout an entire game in chess at this level. You have to do something unexpected. And, yeah, Vincent's capable of that. Like you said, Lecco and Vincent, just it's so clean in their chess.
Yeah.
It's just never really a big mess. It's never as if they've lost full control. It's just impressive.
There's one key difference that I have noticed between someone like, say, Anish and Magnus and / Vincent, is that both of these players, Vincent and Magnus, they start off from a strategically sound opening. Even if Magnus is playing something nonsense, you know, there will be some kind of positional understanding, some logic behind it. Meanwhile, Anish, on the other hand, he tends to enter those complications very early on, and he's not afraid of playing these sharp variations. So it's a different type of risking there is, you know, because when Anish is being asked to risk, you know, it literally could be like a win or lose situation for him if it doesn't go well. Meanwhile, the risk involved for Magnus is going to be a lot less because he has that foundation. It's just a matter of style, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think you'd see Anish, for example, someone like him play an opening like this, where Vincent just takes the game into fresh territory from, what was it you said, Ivanka, move 3, move 4? It was brand new, that position, already. Anish likes to know in advance what he studied, but Vincent, that just shows his confidence, I guess, to spar with Magnus on his own level, essentially, in his own comfort zone. And meanwhile, OK, just a trade of bishop for knight, that was expected, and both sides castling now. So we've ended the opening phase, and we're just going to get into that manoeuvring middle game. White has the 2 bishops, which I love, but the centre is closed for now. Any preference here? Which side would you pick?
I would take white, I think, ever so slightly.
The bishop pair has to count eventually. I agree with you there, Lawrence. And whilst Vincent is thinking about his move, I wanted to share with you a selfie that we have from Ardo, who shares with us that they are playing beach sunset chess games with friends in Okinawa, Japan. Wish the broadcast team was here. Yeah,
Wow.
we do too, Hardo.
That sounds nice.
Beach sunset chess.
Nice.
Sounds awesome, doesn't it? And in Japan. I've never been to Japan. It's like one of my dream destinations. Have you been?
There. Yeah, I loved it. Loved it.
Yeah.
You been?
I've not. I've been to a Japanese tea garden
Nice.
in the middle of Berlin. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name. Anybody goes to Berlin, there's a little sort of sanctuary there. But no, that's about as close as I've got to Japan.
I went in 2012.
Did you?
A long time ago. Yeah, with my family. It was very nice.
Lovely.
Visited some palaces and found some underground like gaming place where they were just
So
playing
many
these-
strange.
They've got Japanese chess, shogi, right?
Yeah.
Very similar.
Yeah, isn't that Peter Heine is a big fan?
Peter
right?
Heine, let's applaud Peter Heine, because he got to a very good level, no, didn't he? I think.
I don't know the levels in shogi, but I think, you know, relatively speaking, yeah, I think you did.
All I know is that you're supposed to sacrifice a lot of your pieces in shogi and just attack, so it might suit me, actually.
It's probably crazy. There's a lot of
I'm never
crazy
picking up
stuff
that game.
going on in Japan. We almost went Mario karting through the streets of Tokyo because they have that.
Wow.
Yeah, you dress up as either Luigi or Mario or whoever.
OK,
Yeah.
who are
Life
you
gaming.
going to dress up as, Kaya, if you had a choice?
Ooh, Yoshi maybe, yeah.
Yoshi,
Bowser,
Physical one.
the green...
Yeah.
What was it? He was
a frog, dragon, I don't know.
dragon or a frog,
Yeah.
right?
Donkey
Or
Kong.
Peach, maybe, the princess.
Peach the princess.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, Japan, very cool country. And we have some moves in this game. Still tense.
Yeah. Still tense. It's still that manoeuvring phase where both sides are coming up with plans, just trying to find the best, most active, most promising squares for their pieces.
Yeah.
Magnus just, again, this shows the nature of the position, just pushing a pawn, creating some breathing space for his king long term. That's a very long term move. And Vincent maybe has the more straightforward plan of the two, but it would come with risk if he rushes it. So if we jump in, we see both sides just laying out their territory, kind of setting up their army. Here, after this last pawn push, I guess Magnus's idea is to bring his bishop out, maybe park his bishop back here on a nice safe square. And for Vincent, because he is the one with the bishop pair, these two pieces, he wants to open up the position. So long term, either he's got to play for this pawn push to try and lengthen the diagonal of this bishop if things open up, or he's got to build for this pawn push. And this pawn push is impossible right now because after a trade of pawns, this bishop is actually hanging. It's attacked twice. So one idea, for example, would be to just move the rook across, eventually start getting ready for this pawn push. I would be slightly tempted as well at some point. I'm not sure exactly when to push this pawn forward and then start pushing here. But
I was just thinking of that, but I didn't like giving up. I've got a wacky move for you, David.
Okay. Hit me with it.
How bad do you like? How bad is the move King H1 here?
I know what your plan is. Okay.
That's a move Simon might approve
The
of.
idea, if the bishop comes out, for example, you want to push this pawn.
Yes, exactly.
Hitting the bishop, and when the bishop moves, you want to shuffle your rook across.
Yeah.
I have a feeling this is what Alpha Zero would do.
I like it.
Do you like
Boris.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got my vote.
Okay.
And I'm ashamed to say that the move that actually occurred to me was what Vincent did in the end. And then I rejected it. I said, no, you can't double your pawns,
Yeah,
close your
strategically.
position.
Oof, this is very risky strategically. The problem is now this pawn can never really be defended by another pawn. Black's clamp down here ensures that there's always going to be en passant or always a capture on this square if white ever pushes his b pawn forward. Therefore, for example, black has an outpost for his knight, or at least effectively an outpost. Black's bishop can come and attack this pawn later on. I would envisage, for example, I guess white's plan is to step forward at some point, but black can just always close this and sit and wait. Long term, maybe this one is vulnerable. I expect Magnus at some point as well to relocate his knight to a better square, maybe this way. Yeah, I mean, white is basically all in on an attack right now, but I don't really see it being that scary. Okay, Magnus has pushed this pawn forward. It's a nice stable base from which to play on. Black is stable there forever, and it's going to be hard for white to push. You also need a knight to jump into some squares if you really want to attack, but you have traded off your final knight. It feels a bit impatient for Vincent.
But he does have two bishops. Magnus, second game in a row where he does not have his bishop pair. Haven't you said that it's been a trend and because of artificial intelligence?
Yeah. In general, Alpha Zero, for example, this position that we mentioned 2 moves ago, here it would come up with some plan, maybe a bit like Lawrence's. It would shuffle the king in the corner, do some weird stuff, but it would open the position at the right time. Here, although white does still have the two bishops, the bishop pair. If we look, after Magnus's move, if we look at the center, it's extremely blocked. These pawns will never really disappear. This bishop is a terrible piece. It's staring at its own pawns, and Magnus is indeed rerouting his knight. White had a threat, actually, of dropping back and trying to win this pawn, but now Magnus can simply defend it with his bishop. But, yeah, more importantly, this knight is coming out to a dream square, and you can never kick it away from there. So bishops are only good if the centre's open, and that's not the case here.
Aha.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm really liking Magnus's position, and I do feel that Vincent has to do something radical.
Wow, and he has.
And that's why he's given up a pawn. Yeah.
So
But he's winning it back immediately, is he not?
He's hit this rook, and he's hit this pawn at the same time. Magnus
Yep.
blocks. Magnus pushes. Yeah, he won back the pawn, which is very nice for Vincent, but, OK, I guess there's maybe a small issue.
His dark squared bishop is so bad, though.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
Oh,
The evaluation.
Oh, he can take and go queen d5 check.
Yeah, you're right, Lawrence.
Massive blunder, is it?
Huge
Yeah.
blunder.
And Vincent has paused. Magnus maybe hasn't realised. Bishop takes pawn. This is why just knowing the evaluation at one point in any chess game can be decisive. This is a check and a fork. We hadn't spotted this. It's not immediately obvious, but if you get a nudge from the computer like this with the evaluation, you find the winning move, simply, and it does exist.
And it seems like Vincent senses.
The fact that he's paused means it's on his radar. So it looks like automatic. The bishop has to retreat, run away, but then black is fine. But bishop takes pawn. Either you win a pawn, 2 bishops, or you win even more with this double attack.
Wow. And Magnus not reacting. if he's seen it, is it important that he doesn't?
Wow.
Oh, missed it.
Vincent trusts him. Maybe Vincent was scared in this type of situation that his queen would be trapped in the corner, but it looks like it has plenty of escape squares. It has squares to run to. Wow.
What a miss.
Mutual blindness, we call it, when, yeah, neither player just looks for the tactic, looks for the moment. And
Oh, that was a huge moment.
I mean,
Vincent Keymer.
I can't blame Vincent. I mean, if we just don't expect the world champion to blunder like this. It's quite a simple blunder. It's just a two-move tactic. But if you're not expecting the moment, it's hard to pick up on it. And now, yeah, it's back to roughly equal. Black has these 3 pawns, but some double pawns here, whereas White has a 5 versus 4 advantage on the other side. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, a spectacular miss. And actually, Magnus does get away a lot of the time because people just believe that he can't make such blunders. It's Magnus Carlsen, as if he would blunder a 2-move tactic. But it does happen, and, you know, he got away with one big time just there. That really was the end of the game if you play bishop takes b5, because then suddenly the black queen side just dissipates into nothingness. So great miss there. And now Magnus is better again, and when you miss a shot like that against Magnus, he's not going to give you a second chance. So I fully expect now this to be a Magnus victory, but a fairly long one. It's going to take another 40, 50 moves.
Another long grind ahead.
The worst scenario is when you make your move, and just after you make your move, your brain goes, but wait 1 second. You could have taken the pawn.
Yes.
And then you're like, brain, why did you not work when I was thinking? Why wait until after I've made my move?
That's happened to me so many times.
And you spend the rest of the game just going, I could have just won.
Yeah, and it's not just the one about winning, it's when you blunder something. You spent 20 minutes on that move, and you play a move, and you end up playing a move, and it's, oh, that just loses, does it? And you just, why am I playing this game? What am I doing?
How do you guys react? Like when you know you've blundered, but your opponent hasn't moved yet, do you
Get
keep
up.
the poker face?
No, I
Yes,
get up.
get up.
I can't keep
yeah.
the poker face, yeah.
I just,
Okay, so now I know when I play you.
Anytime Lawrence gets up, he's
looking
blundered.
I can't. I can't. Just Magnus has got a poker face. Who else has got a really good poker face?
Magnus has a poker face over the board, but
Yes.
maybe not online. Online, normally he reacts, right?
Yeah.
Who's got a good poker face over the board?
Caruana.
Yes.
It's like you never know whether he's winning or losing just looking at him.
No. Well, Magnus did have a great poker face in like Game 6 in 2014, when he blundered big time against Anand, right? And he had to sit there and keep his poker face, and Anand didn't notice the blunder.
It was that 2-pawn.
Ah, I was commentating it, yeah.
It was a while ago, Lawrence. We'll forgive you.
It's nearly 10 years, yeah.
Yeah, and I recently blundered at the Olympiad. I thought I was winning on the spot. I played a move. Literally, the moment my fingers left the piece, I realised I'd blundered, and I just sat there and I was kind of like nodding, looking confident. My opponent had 2 minutes on the clock, and I was looking his most obvious move, pushing a pawn to f3. I was looking at the f3 square, being like, yep. And because his winning move was on the other side of the board, and
Smart.
yeah, he went down to 5 seconds. I was like, oh, he's going to play it, and then he didn't.
Oh,
And,
nice. Oh, that's a good idea.
So yeah, it was the opposite of poker face. I knew I had to react, but I knew I had to pretend I was confident.
yeah.
But okay, the queen shuffles.
Yeah, and talking about someone who wasn't poker face, I mean, there was quite a famous incident that happened in Norway chess this year where Anand, he was playing against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, and he just blundered. And he resigned. You know, he was so shocked with his blunder that when Mamedyarov came back, he just like literally shook his hand. And Mamedyarov was like, Shak was like, why? Why has he resigned? And then it took him a while, and then I would have seen that. But we were like, we're not so sure, actually.
Yeah, because maybe he would have made a quick move when he came back to the board.
And there was a very natural move at his disposal as well. So it was not entirely clear that Shak would have found the winning continuation. And afterwards, we were discussing this at the end of the tournament, and Vichy agreed with that. It was a bit premature.
It was an emotional resignation.
It was, yeah.
So this can never happen because it's logistically impossible to set up, but to measure blunders made on returning from the toilet, because that's when I feel like
that's
I make
interesting.
I
Yeah,
make
we could
most.
measure that.
But you would have to know when a player... Well, you could do it on the tour, potentially, if they have a toilet break or if...
Very rarely,
Very
though.
rare. It's
Yeah.
quite difficult to do. But I always feel like I made huge blunders just coming back from a toilet break or just going outside because I've not fully gathered myself and I kind of rush into the position.
Yeah.
Or immediately after getting the bonus time. That's the
Yeah.
classic,
That's-
isn't it? That's the
41,
classic.
that's
Move
the famous.
41, yeah. The famous move 41.
Take your eye off the ball. You've just had your toilet break, probably.
Yeah.
And, you normally sit there for 10, 20 minutes and unfocused, and that's where the mistakes happen. And, yeah, move 40, that's the time control. In most games, I guess it's lucky for the players. They get bonus time after every move, so, every move, 10 seconds.
Vincent way down on the clock here. I mean, he's 8 minutes down. He's got a worse position. This is just everything. The stars are aligning for Magnus here.
Yeah.
Just everything is working.
Feels like he's hustling in a way on the clock, Magnus. Like, that's why he played that blunder so quickly. He's just trying to put pressure on the clock as well. It'll be fascinating to find out whether he if he's aware that he made a mistake later. Maybe that's something we can ask the Norwegian, if we can get him for an interview.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, White's rook going on the attack, but it's attacking alone. White's bishops are completely blocked in. That's why the evaluation bar says it's so good for black. And now Magnus, this is cynical, just swapping one of those bishops off. Makes sense. The white pawns in the centre, the white doubled E pawns look very, very weak.
Yeah.
And Magnus will secure his rook now.
But is there a little TikTok? No, that's not the tactic. Rook A-D8, this is one of my favourite tactics, the interference tactic, bishop D4. Does that exist?
So in the current position, sorry, if we fast
Yes.
forward, yeah, rook coming across, the bishop now cutting the connection between the two rooks. If this bishop is captured, for example, pawn takes, then the rook falls, but I guess you can just support your rook.
Yeah, I missed that, actually.
Luckily, the rook's not trapped. I think maybe he's looking the other direction, Lawrence. Maybe he wants to go this way and start attacking the king.
Yeah.
This is slightly awkward to deal with, potentially. You don't really want to go passive with the black queen to defend. You can move the black knight out the way, for example, just to defend across, but slightly loose, maybe, for black temporarily. I could envisage a situation where after a trade of pawns, at least white has some tricks, some counterplay. At least now all of white's pieces are pointing towards the black king.
Yeah, I wasn't actually sure about bishop d3 when Magnus played it because the bishop wasn't doing very much. I thought he was just going to double on the d line and...
Earlier, this move, yeah.
Yeah, instead of this move, just a move like rook d6 or rook a7, some doubling, and ask... Because this rook on g3 is really quite poor.
Yeah.
It's a sort of move I would play, so I know it's not very good.
And, well, he's followed through with your plan. And now David's question is going to be on the board. The queen is going to come up, threat and checkmate. I mean...
Yeah, makes sense. What else do you do with white? Not completely clear. Why not go threat and checkmate?
I think you have to do this. I mean, white's been looking at ways to initiate chaos from quite some moves ago. So now I'm thinking... I mean, how to keep control.
Okay, he plays this move. Big threat on the board.
Yeah, queen takes pawn. It's going to be checkmate, so you can't allow that. And David kind of showed that the knight can retreat. There's also the queen that can retreat. But at the same time, it kind of does feel like white is gaining some momentum.
Yeah.
And
Some tough pieces lined up against the black king.
right, yeah. And I'm just thinking that the pawn on e5 can be destabilized, and the bishop's potential on the long diagonal can be lengthened.
Yeah, the bishop indirectly maybe attacking this pawn. Temporarily, black's got everything covered. But yeah, I mean, this rook's not doing anything. That's why I suggested maybe just bringing it across. And there is potential to kind of switch focus, double up on the open file to break in there. Like Ivanka said, sometimes you can go for this pawn. Sometimes you can go maybe for this pawn. I'm not entirely sure Magnus is happy now. Feels like he has lost significant control. Okay, Vincent doesn't go for this last move, instead bringing his queen in. Maybe a threat on the board if queen takes pawn, utilising the fact that g-pawn is pinned for black.
I would instinctively move my king out of the firing line.
You move it onto this bishop's diagonal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Vincent fighting very well.
All right.
Very
Well, So looking better for Vincent on the board, and it's definitely looking good for Vincent on the standings after 2 out of 15 rounds in the preliminaries. He has 4 points. That is 1 point more than Magnus Carlsen, who has won 1 game and lost 1 game on 3 points. Magnus Carlsen, there are 3 players on 4 points and 1 player with 2 wins. Nodirbek Abdusatorov, 6 points, and it's looking good for him also here in round 3. Could he win 3 out of 3 in the start of the Aimchess Rapid? That would be impressive. And just a draw for Vincent in this game would be impressive against Magnus Carlsen, rated at 29.02 in the tour. Definitely the strongest player. Playing some inaccurate moves over the last few moves, Magnus?
Possibly. It feels like he's rushing in now. The black knight has jumped out the way. This has allowed the white queen to swing across and capture a pawn. And Magnus, a slight shake of the head there. He's completely lost control, so now it's just very tactical, very... it's very concrete, the position. I guess Magnus was banking on the fact that the black rook could come down and check the white king, but after a trade of rooks, white's king can actually maybe just march towards the center safely. Suddenly black has no stability, and you need to... you need something now, otherwise white might continue just grabbing some pawns. What do you guys think? He's got 10 minutes. Should he just sit on his hands and kind of...
Yeah, now's the time to have a pause. Because you have a check, as you mentioned. There's also knight takes pawn in the air. You have to decide which one is the most effective way of putting white under some pressure.
Lawrence, how would you go about approaching this position for black if you know you've lost some control, but it's still very complicated?
Yeah, it's a tough question. Yeah, I think you do have to invest time here. I think this is the moment where we're going to see Magnus investing something in the region of 3 or 4 minutes, because there's a lot of forcing calculation baselines, which you just have to check and recheck. And you've got lots of... there are probably 4 candidate moves minimum here for black. So it's a really tricky... But Magnus is... He's not yet firing, is he? He's not in the 5th gear that we're used to. When he gets there, he's almost unbeatable. But he's certainly not there yet. And Vincent will be mildly optimistic here about at least getting... I'm not sure Vincent is thinking about winning this position, but I don't think he's thinking he's losing now.
So, in this position, if it were me, if I'm calculating, like you said, there's a rook check, you can capture this pawn, you can capture this pawn in the second way, and there's a bunch of options. So I would start by looking at the checks first, I guess. Checks, captures, and threats, as we mentioned earlier. So this forces the opponent's reply. It forces the second reply as well, the king marching out into the open. But the key is whether anything exists now, whether black has a follow-up. White is a pawn up temporarily. This pawn is attacked as well. There's now some checks in the air. The problem is if you check with the black queen, this can just be blocked by white's rook. And what next? I just don't see a follow-up. So this is what Magnus is calculating. He's looking at this position first, maybe, and he's just trying to figure out if there's a continuation. You could still perhaps continue here in a few ways. If that doesn't work, if that doesn't appeal to him, he'll go back. He'll look at the second candidate move, which is a capture. Now this is maybe a bigger threat, but it does give white some time. I'm not exactly sure what white would do here. For example, if white were to just move the rook across, I was going to say to this square, but it doesn't guard against the check. Maybe, for example, the white rook would just swing across. Now the black rook can't give a check. Maybe there's nothing here either, and that's why Magnus is just pausing and raising his eyebrows, it looks like on the camera. But yeah, no easy move. You can take this pawn with the rook as well, but it's not clear what that gains.
Yeah, Magnus is... It's not often you have Magnus Carlsen stumped, but he's a bit stumped in this position. You saw him breathe out heavily. He's not happy. He's annoyed that he's let this one get a little out of control, because he had such a good grip on the position just 5-10 moves ago. Plays the move knight takes e3. Okay.
And yeah, this black rook check now is much more scary. So white, I guess, has to deal with it.
Computer hated that move, by the way.
Really?
computer just went nuts at that move.
Valuation bar now in Vincent's favour for the first time.
And remember, if it goes over, is it 1 or 2?
After 2, that's where the advantage capitalisation comes in.
So not quite yet.
What was it? Nearly 90% or around?
Over 90, wasn't it? 91?
91% for Vincent. If the bar goes that far. How far did it go with that one moment where Magnus blundered? Was it +2? It might have been.
Yeah.
+2, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
But that was...
that might affect his stats.
Yeah,
Doesn't win this game now.
he's down to 90% now.
Yeah. But still, you know,
Unless
the
he wins.
position is
he might win.
massively complicated. And Vincent doesn't have that much time to navigate
true.
this.
Ooh.
You know, just over 2 minutes on the clock.
Oh, and Magnus should spend more time in the mountains or in the Swedish woods. I don't know where he is. Because his air things stats, very nice. Air quality, great there in the cabin in Sweden.
Oh, even the temperature?
Even the temperature, yeah,
He
I know.
normally has it pretty warm.
Yeah,
It's a bit dark where he is. I don't
Yeah.
approve of that. But air quality being good.
yeah.
Nice for chess, of course. We've seen that directly impact players' results. And wow, Vincent, this shows nerves of steel, just capturing a pawn. Vincent going a pawn up again, but allowing some dangerous checks. Oof, what a brave guy. The black rook can come down now again with a check. Maybe there's just no follow-up.
Taking those risks, is that what he's doing?
It looks that way. He really wants to win this game. There were safer options, as I mentioned. You could have stopped any checks in this position. For example, you could bring your rook across, attacking the knight, stopping any checks. But Vincent just grabs a pawn. And now, okay, the key question is after this one, after a trade of rooks, white's king marching forward into the open, is there a follow-up now? Maybe not. Again.
Don't see
check.
anything.
The rook just blocks. Yeah, I mean, another knight check. The king just moves, and there's always a double attack against the queen now and against the rook.
I think Magnus has to maybe reject this line that you have on the board. I think that's
reject this check?
Yeah, and perhaps introduce a new piece into the attack. Maybe move the queen. I'm thinking
maybe
moving to the f7 square, first of all to guard the king, but also at the same time now threaten this rook check, which will be quite deadly.
Now a massive threat of rook check because the queen cuts off the king's escape route. And I guess if the rook shuffles across to block that file, then we could see the queen introduce a second threat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Threatening checkmate now.
That was the plan.
Yeah, I mean, this makes a lot of sense, Ivanka. Also, it's quite nice to block any queen checks along this diagonal for white. What would Vincent have in store here? I do wonder whether at some point he might just give up his rook for the black knight and just say, OK, I'm just going to go grab this pawn, next I'll grab this pawn. Still, it's so hard to evaluate who's got the advantage here. Long term, it's white if the queen's come off, maybe, but...
Yeah. In this one, though, I don't think it works, right? Because rook e2, queen g6, and...
Still the white king under fire. OK, Magnus goes the other way instead. In this position, he brings his queen to the h4 square. What's the queen doing here? Maybe hitting this pawn? Maybe some ideas still of this check?
And maybe also the knight retreating to the g4 square, so you can... Ooh.
Oh, Vincent getting greedy, grabbing all the pawns. Now Vincent has a huge threat on the board as well. Rook takes pawn.
This position is crazy.
It really is. How is it 0.0 here? Because it looks like either Vincent's just 2 pawns up and about to win, or Vincent's getting checkmated. It doesn't...
There's a really important variation here, which is where after rook down check, take, king f2, knight g4 check. Looks as though black wins the bishop, but after, let's say, but king e2 hits the rook. But I wanted to show that after knight takes e5, white has also got a resource of checking on the back rank. He can also, of course, he would take the rook here, but checking down there and winning that knight. So Vincent, aware of the resources, and incredibly tough position for both players.
Magnus needs some magic now because, I mean, this is just a, rook takes pawn, sorry, is a winning threat. The black king will have nowhere safe to go if that happens. So Magnus, I guess he can block this with Ivanka's idea by dropping the knight back.
Oh, wait 1 second, I just have to interrupt you there, David, because there's only one move to save the game, and that's to
Really?
play queen takes pawn. Allow the
Wow.
rook to take the pawn with check. And then the whole idea, oh my God, this move is just crazy. And then the whole point is that you hide the king along the same diagonal as the bishop. You move it into the h8 square.
So you walk into a discovered check, you just don't care, and you say, come at me.
Whoa.
The problem here is that it's so unnatural. How do you put your king in the corner here, opposite your opponent's bishop?
So Magnus only has this one move to
Yes.
not lose the game.
Everything else will lose.
Here he has to take this pawn on e4, and that is not obvious. I guess the justification is here you can walk into the firing line because you're attacking the piece that will check the black king. But, for example, after the rook drops back with a check, the black king has to go to this square, and at the very least, Vincent has a draw. So even if Magnus finds the only defense, Vincent has a draw. Do you think he'll find it?
I mean, if anybody can find it, it's him.
So queen takes pawn.
I mean, it's such a hard move to play, walking into a... Firstly, you walk into check, and then you have to walk into a discovered check. It's your worst nightmare.
Thinking for over 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes now, Magnus. He has to find this move. Will he find it?
Yeah, so queen takes pawn. We're looking for that one. He's under 3 minutes now. I have a feeling he won't. I don't think I would play this move. I don't think... I mean, it would be on my radar, but once I see that I have to walk into the corner, or... I think I would just write it off, especially with only 3 minutes. Maybe if you have half an hour, you see this, it's just ghost.
He doesn't find
doesn't
it.
find
Is
it.
Magnus now losing this game?
He is losing. He actually plays the second best move. We saw the Stockfish suggestions there, but it gives White a massive advantage, 3.7. White is 2 pawns up, so it's not actually that surprising. The White is winning. It's just Vincent now just needs to solidify.
Why is it winning? So what's the variation, Jovanka? Because it's still
Still.
Okay.
Maybe
not
you can just.
straightforward.
Two ways to win this position, and only 2 ways, I have to say. It's actually to move the queen to the c6 square, as you've highlighted,
Yeah, so
or to give a check.
2 moves. So either you give a check with the queen, or maybe the most natural move. I'm only playing this because I know that this was Black's best move on the last go. So you can move your queen to this square and guard your central pawn. And he doesn't play it.
Oh, no.
Okay, now it's been turned around. Now Black is going to win.
What? Look at that.
Can
Why?
you take this pawn, first of all? That is one question. Maybe you can. Maybe this is just the key for Magnus, this pawn. It's not just the pawn, it's getting the queen centralized, and he does take
He
it.
plays it.
Now this is a monster threat. Now the white king is not safe, and Black's king surviving, just about. I mean, it's just the clock. Vincent didn't have enough time there to work things out, but just a bit greedy, I guess, with this last pawn capture. And what to do now? For example, this check can simply be met by the king running to the side. The black rook does a great defensive job. The evaluation bar only says plus 1.3, so there must be a way for Vincent to keep alive, keep the fight going. OK, he moves his rook across, very natural. This knight is pinned now in this direction, but it doesn't stop the black rook from coming down. And
Black's moves are so natural.
that's the problem. You just go for the white king. You're 2 pawns down, you just go all in, and objectively, it's good for black. That makes Magnus's task easier.
And if the white king is being forced to run out into the open, and there's a queen and a rook and a knight, well, the queen and knight, I have to say, are a magnificent duo.
Yeah. This time it won't end well for white. I guess you can just give a check with your rook, for example, and the king is doomed.
10 seconds for Vincent Keymer.
Yeah, 10 seconds and not easy. OK, he drops his bishop back to defend his rook, but this one, it does now look very bad for white. Still need to knock the knockout blow. How do you knock out your opponent, Lawrence?
You know, left hook to the body, left upper, you know.
Could you just...
Sorry, boxing lingo. Knight takes g2, is that?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
I was thinking either you come this way and keep things simple, attack the rook, or you can maybe take this pawn, attacking the rook.
Cute, mate. isn't it?
Attacking this rook in 3 times. Yeah, cute mate here. This is checkmate. King trapped on the back rank. These moves will be on Magnus's radar. They're not that difficult either. He just drops back. OK, makes sense, blocking the rook's path towards the black king.
But Bar doesn't like it. Now the game is
Very
swung again. Now it's like
This is-
0.05
Maybe you can play
seconds.
queen b4. Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Geometry. Using the queen to try and trade off the black's queen, but also indirectly protecting your rook. Wow. That's not obvious. Maybe this is what Magnus missed.
Oh, it's like they're walking a tightrope over the Grand Canyon or something.
Yeah.
They just have to find these only moves.
And talking about only moves, I just peeked at the computer's evaluation, and there you can see it. Only one move to save the game.
Again!
And Magnus has to trade off rooks, and that's not obvious. He doesn't actually want to trade off pieces. He's 2 pawns down. He wants to keep the attack going somehow. I have a feeling he's not going to play that. He will want to play something a bit more ambitious, like moving the queen. But rook takes rook does look like the only way. Wow. OK, he doesn't play it. He goes, plays the flashy move, attacking the white queen. Now, the bishop cannot capture, because this would end in checkmate. But why is this bad? Can we work it out?
And now 9.5 for
Whoa.
Vincent Keymer.
Whoa, rook takes knight. I mean,
What a move.
this is hanging. This is hanging. This is hanging. But white's defending everything.
But it's no good, apparently.
It's not the best move, though. Maybe there's something better.
I mean, can he take the rook?
Which one? This one or this one? Is so complicated right now. If you take this rook with a check, I guess you can take this rook now. This is the minimum for black.
And then you can take the...
Yeah, so now it's rook versus bishop and 2 pawns. It's actually level material after all of that. White gives a check. It should now be a draw with best play, most likely. But white's king is still in a bit of trouble. Black's got 2 heavy pieces. I just want to backtrack and find out what the winning move was in this position, because it's just chaotic.
He's going to play queen f3 in the... I guess we should stay with the current position.
Maybe
right?
it was just a simple check, and then you pick up this rook.
Queen f3.
But, OK, let's go back to the current position, as you mentioned, Lawrence.
This is a great move.
Bar is going up for Magnus again.
Yeah, bar's going up for black.
But, you know, there are a lot of these endgames where the bar says plus 1.1 or 1.2, but it's actually a theoretical draw.
Yeah. For example, here you could have traded the queens and then gone down to pin and then tried to go across. Maybe there's some chances here, but OK, he just went back.
Yeah, I think it's a very smart idea not to exchange of queens, because then you keep the dangerous dynamic potential that the rook and queen have against white's exposed king.
Yeah. For example, you can already gain time against the white queen, forcing her away. OK, Magnus plays a nasty trick, bringing the queen in. The rook is poisoned. If you capture the rook, you get distracted from your bishop. Checkmate.
Isn't that winning? I mean, it looks really strong, because after all, the rook is going to
Massive threat.
put itself
King
on the
F1.
e4. Yeah, OK, now I think Vincent has lost control. You know, I think his position has totally collapsed. 1 pawn has dropped.
Yeah.
White's king is out in the open.
It's all about this king. This pawn as well, not long for the world. And then it's just rook versus bishop. Advantage, winning for black. Let's take a break and take a breath, because that was just chaotic. So
Wow.
chaotic.
But is Magnus winning now?
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's relatively straightforward.
OK.
The problem is he has no counterplay, Vincent. The black king can easily hide behind its pawns. It's just a mopping up job, as we say. And yeah, I mean, if the queens are off the board, maybe still a draw. But with the queens on, white's king is the target.
Yeah, and I just love the way that Magnus just attacks the queen, but at the same time, his rook is protected. The queen is nicely positioned to guard the king. I mean, Magnus knows how to make his pieces work together as a team.
I think Vincent's going to lose on time here. Oh, he got there just.
1 second, he made that move. Oof. There is a trap. Don't get greedy and go and capture white's pawn now, because the white queen will go to f8 check and hit that black rook. OK, still surviving. Magnus loves to centralize his queens in these endgames. Very sensible. 2 threats now. Well, at least the biggest one is to bring the rook down to the first rank, pinning that white bishop.
A bunch of games have finished. We did see a win for Mamadiyarov on fire today. He beat Magnus Carlsen, and now in round 3 he beat Anish Giri. I did see a tweet apparently sacrificing a queen, a rook, a knight. I think there was even one more piece in that game to beat Anish Giri. I mean, Mamadiyarov on fire.
Sounds like a standard shot game.
It does.
Yeah, and Magnus just setting up for the final attack, centralizing his pieces. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Magnus just puts his king, I was going to say, on a light square, just so it doesn't get checked. Setting the traps, Vincent. Again, that pawn is poisoned. If you take that pawn with the black queen, white will play queen f5 check, hitting the black king, winning the black rook.
I mean,
Don't rush.
Yeah, don't rush. I mean, now is it time to line up the rook and the queen together on the E line? Start attacking the bishop.
Yeah, you can attack the white queen as well with the black rook. You can pin that white bishop.
What's nice about rook e3 also, Ivan, is after king f1 you've got queen h1.
I know.
Right?
So there you go, setting all the traps backwards, not backwards.
Yeah, we'll see a resignation any moment for Vincent. He can't keep everything together. Bishop just a bad piece. That rook's coming to e2. Let's come
5
to the second rank.
seconds, 4 seconds, and he moves his bishop to the edge of the board. But that's it. It's going to be game over.
Yeah, the rook just moves. It's going to come to the first rank and pin that white queen. White just doesn't have enough pawn shelter for his king. Okay, he retreats. He's still fighting. Fair play. Credit to Vincent there. But what a game this has been. Just this feels like the calm after the storm. But Magnus, how does he do it? Just balancing on the edge of that tightrope all the time, and just somehow he wins these positions. Okay, how to finish this one off? Still some work to be done.
Yeah, there's still work here, actually.
Taking to 30 seconds. Magnus Carlsen, Vincent Keymer, probably losing this game, but he's been on fire lately and reached 2,700 in over-the-board chess. Made it to the semifinals in the previous tournament, and his fellow German, Matthias Blubaum, I think is ready for the Fischer Random World Championship later this month with, for example, Magnus Carlsen. Chess in Germany is blooming. You're living in Germany, Lawrence.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of positive attention around chess right now in Germany?
Yeah, I would say, you know, there's a number of very strong young players, and really Vincent, you know, being only 17, 2,700. But there are a small group, they were called the German Princes, or maybe they still are called the German Princes. You know, you had Rasmus Fahne, Matthias Blubaum, Wagner, a bunch of young players who got very, very good. They didn't quite break the super elite, though, like Vincent has done. But there's still time, they're still young.
I mean, it would be great for chess, right, if chess got super popular in Germany, such a big and important country.
The German Federation are working towards that, and their whole goal is to raise the standard. They don't want just one player to be exceptional. They want there to be like the Russians, like the Indians, you know, where you have a group of them. And so they're prepared to invest their energies and resources into creating these foundations that can accelerate improvement.
Nice.
And it seems like Magnus is treating us to a grind, or maybe an entry into your chessable course, winning the long way.
And I mean, he could have probably just found a checkmate earlier, but he decided to go into the same game, and it is winning, especially because the white pawns are fixed on the same colour as their bishop, meaning that the black king has an easy route towards those pawns later. But he's not made it easy for himself, Magnus.
He's definitely played subpar this game. This has been a pretty poor game for his standards.
Yeah,
I mean...
Yeah, I think it's a very realistic game, you know. I can see myself in this type of game. You have a winning position, you don't quite put the boot in, and then you're forced to grind this out. You know, it's been very topsy-turvy, you know, missing chances left, right and centre. And I don't know, one of the advantages of it being a long game is that, well, everyone at home can send in their Twitter suggestions or their tweets, who they're cheering for, their selfies. And, of course, we still maybe have time to analyse someone's Aimchess statistics.
Yeah, gonna do that. After this game, a viewer at home will get their performance analysed by David Howell.
I have to say, I love the reasons for a lot of people. A lot of people are like, nice. Oh, I want to break 1,400. We've seen some people say, hey, it's my birthday, wink, wink.
It's everyone's birthday today.
Yeah, and some people have gone down the flattery route. They'll say, oh, we love David.
Flattery gets you everywhere.
Oh, are we going to see a beautiful checkmating? We're going to see it, aren't we?
I think we are. The white king is just trapped eternally. Black just needs to bring
Are you thinking of the one I'm thinking of? No, there's a cute one that she's...
Oh, OK. Let's show this.
Sack the rook.
Yeah, and Will we see Vincent resign? Let's keep an eye on the players. If the bishop...
he's
OK, the bishop drops. But just wait. Just move your rook. And Magnus is going to do this. Now, wherever the bishop goes, he's going to bring his rook back. The bishop's going to move, and he's going to give up his rook and deliver checkmate with a pawn. What a finish. And Vincent resigns. He knew this was coming. He should have shown us the checkmate. But there we go. Magnus eventually takes the win.
It's over, another win for Magnus Carlsen. A long grind, and what an interesting game. So many one moves that these players had to find eventually. Magnus Carlsen was the one who found the most important ones to win this game. And it is time now for today's Lisoveta Learning